What if the most terrifying things are those which remain unseen? In the realm of horror, the unseen often holds more terror than the seen. It's the psychological horror that truly chills us to the bone. The fear of the unknown, the unseen, the unheard. It's this invisible terror that often becomes the most potent. For what we can't see, we can't fight. It's like trying to battle the shadows, a futile endeavor. Let's delve into a tale that exemplifies this unseen terror. Picture a man, let's call him John. John lived alone in an old house, a house that held more silence than sounds. But one day, the silence was broken by whispers. Whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, whispers that he couldn't trace. At first, John thought it was the wind, the house settling, or even his own mind playing tricks. But soon, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, more real. They would start at dusk, when the shadows grew longer, and would stop at dawn, when the first rays of sun pierced the darkness. John searched every corner of his house, every creaky floorboard, every dusty attic, but found nothing. No one. Yet, the whispers continued. They were always there, at the edge of his hearing, a constant reminder of the unseen terror. The whispering voices became his constant companions, unseen guests in his lonely home. They were never clear, always just out of comprehension, but their presence was undeniable. And with each passing day, they grew more insistent, as if trying to convey a message that John just couldn't decipher. John's life became a living nightmare, a waking dream of horror. The unseen, the unheard, the unknown took over his existence. He found himself caught in a cycle of fear, unable to escape, unable to fight, unable to understand. And so, he lived, tormented by the unseen, the unheard, the unknown. The dark, a canvas for our deepest fears. But what happens when those fears become reality? Imagine a woman, let's call her Jane. Jane had always been afraid of the dark, a fear she carried with her from childhood. An irrational fear, some might say, but it was as real to her as the air she breathed. One fateful night, after a long day of work, Jane was settling down for a peaceful evening at home. Suddenly, the lights flickered, then died. Power outage. She was plunged into a darkness so deep it seemed to consume everything around her. It was as if the world itself had been swallowed by the shadows. Jane fumbled for a flashlight, her heart pounding in her chest. The silence was deafening, interrupted only by the sound of her own breathing. With every passing second, the darkness seemed to grow thicker, more oppressive. She could feel something, a presence, lurking in the shadows, something that wasn't there before. It was as if the darkness had come alive, its icy tendrils reaching out for her. She could almost hear it whispering in her ear, a low guttural voice that sent chills down her spine. Jane tried to shake off the feeling, telling herself it was all in her head. She tried to focus on the sound of her own heartbeat, so loud it was almost deafening. She tried to remember that it was just a power outage, that the lights would come back on any second now. But the darkness was unforgiving, unrelenting. As the hours dragged on, Jane's fear morphed into a primal terror. The darkness was no longer just a lack of light, it was a malevolent entity, a beast that fed on her fear. It was in the corners of her vision, in the depths of the shadows, in the silence between her heartbeat. In the end, it wasn't the dark she should have feared, but what it concealed. Jane's tale serves as a grim reminder that sometimes our deepest fears may hide something far more sinister. The darkness is not always just a canvas for our fears, but a stage where they come to life. Can the past come back to haunt us? Can our sins ever truly be forgotten? Imagine a man, let's call him John. John was not a saint, far from it. He had his fair share of wrongdoings, misdeeds that he thought were buried deep in the past, forgotten by time. But as we will discover, the past has a peculiar way of lingering in the present. One day John started seeing visions, not the hopeful kind that guide you towards a better future, but the kind that drag you back into your darkest past. Visions of his past wrongdoing started to materialize before his very eyes. No matter where he went, no matter what he did, these visions followed him like a shadow, growing more vivid and horrifying with each passing moment. It began as mere glimpses, fleeting images that would disappear as quickly as they appeared. But over time they grew stronger, more persistent. He could see the faces of those he had wronged, hear their voices filled with disappointment and anger. He could feel their pain, their sorrow, their despair. It was as if his past had come alive, refusing to be forgotten. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, drenched in cold sweat, with the echoes of your past mistakes ringing in your ears. Imagine seeing the specters of your past misdeeds lurking in every corner, in every shadow. This was John's reality. John sought help. He consulted therapists, spiritual leaders, even paranormal experts. But nothing worked. The visions were relentless, unyielding. They were a constant reminder of the pain and suffering he had caused. In his desperation, John turned to redemption. He tracked down those he had wronged, apologized, made amends. He devoted his life to doing good, to helping others, hoping that this would somehow silence the relentless echoes of his past. But the visions didn't stop. They grew more intense, more terrifying, driving him to the brink of madness. In his desperate quest for redemption, he found only madness. What if you're never truly alone? What if someone or something is always watching? Imagine a woman, an average Jane, living an average life. But there's one thing that's far from average, an eerie sensation of being watched, a feeling she can't shake off, a feeling that she's never truly alone. You see, Jane lives alone in an old, creaky house on Elm Street. It's an ordinary house with ordinary things, but there's an extraordinary presence, always lurking, watching. Jane doesn't see anyone, but she feels it, right there in the corner of her eye, just out of sight. The presence is silent, but it's there, always there. It's like a shadow, a silent stalker, always just a step behind. In the quiet of the day, she hears the faintest whispers, the subtlest movements. At night, the house creaks and groans, as if the very walls are alive. And then the dreams begin. Dreams that aren't dreams, but nightmares. Nightmares that are so vivid, so real, that the line between sleep and wakefulness begins to blur. In these dreams, the silent stalker becomes less silent, less invisible. It's no longer a shadow, but a shape, a form, a figure. The figure is dark, formless, but its eyes, oh, its eyes. They're the only thing that's clear. Two glowing orbs, watching, always watching. The figure doesn't move, doesn't speak, just watches. And Jane, she can't move, can't scream, just watches back. As the days turn into weeks and the weeks into months, the silent stalker becomes a constant companion. Jane's life, once ordinary, is now filled with dread. The dread of the waking hours, the terror of the sleeping ones. She is trapped in her own home, trapped in her own mind. Her waking hours were filled with dread, her dreams with terror. She was never alone. Can the truth ever be more horrifying than fiction? There's a chilling tale that might make you question your own reflection. Picture this. A man, just like any other, wakes up one day to find his reflection behaving in a manner that defies all logic. He stands before the mirror, his eyes heavy with sleep, his mind foggy from dreams, but the face that gazes back at him isn't mimicking his tired expression. Instead, it's smiling. A broad, unnerving grin that sends a shiver down his spine. He blinks, rubs his eyes, but the smile persists. Throughout the day, he finds himself drawn to the mirror, unable to shake off this unsettling experience. Each time he looks, the reflection behaves differently. It stares back at him when he looks away. It winks at him when he's expressionless. It's as if the man in the mirror has a mind of its own. As the days pass, the man's sanity begins to crack. He stops sleeping, stops eating. He becomes a prisoner in his own home, afraid of what he might encounter each time he passes a reflective surface. The reflection, once a simple mimicry of reality, has become a twisted parody, a cruel joke that only he is privy to. He reaches out to friends, family, even professionals, but they offer no solace. They see only their own reflections, behaving as reflections should. They dismiss his claims as hallucinations, perhaps triggered by stress or a lack of sleep. But the man knows better. He knows what he's seen. This is no ghost story, no tale spun by a campfire. This is a terrifying reality that one man had to face. A chilling reminder that sometimes the most horrifying horrors lurk not in the shadows, but in the very reflection that stares back at us from the mirror. He was left to ponder, was it his reflection that had changed, or was it him? The truth, it seems, can indeed be more horrifying than fiction.